Ladies and gentlemen, imagine this for just 3 days. Every word you say to yourself becomes law in your life. Every inner sentence, every whisper in your mind turns into an unshakable reality. Would you be careful with your words? Would you speak to yourself differently? Here's the truth. You already live in that reality. Your inner speech is not harmless background noise. It is the architect of your future. For 3 days, I'm asking you to try an experiment. Talk to yourself as though the thing you want most is already yours. Not, I will be successful, but I am successful. Not, one day I'll be loved, but I am deeply loved and cherished now. Why? Because you become what you assume. When you speak to yourself from the end result, not toward it, but from it, your mind accepts it as fact. And when your mind accepts it, your actions, emotions, and circumstances follow suit. You might say, but that's lying to myself. No, it's giving yourself a new truth to live by. The old self-talk created your current reality. The new self-talk will create the next one. During these 3 days, ignore the evidence of your senses. If your bank account is low, do not rehearse that fact in your mind. Speak to yourself as the person who has more than enough. If relationships have been difficult, do not retell the story of hurt. Speak to yourself as someone who is respected, valued, and loved. And most importantly, persist. For 3 days, no matter what happens, return to your new inner dialogue. When doubt creeps in, replace it with your chosen words. When fear appears, speak the opposite. By the end of those 3 days, something will shift. It may be small, it may be subtle, but you will feel it, the quiet certainty that your life bends to the words you speak to yourself. So I ask you, for just 3 days, will you talk to yourself like the person you most want to be? Because if you do, you might never want to stop. Thank you. If you want, I can also give you a shorter, high-impact version of this speech for a more motivational, fast-paced delivery. That would make it feel like a viral keynote. Would you like me to prepare that next? You become what you assume yourself. Talk is not just commentary, it's the blueprint your reality follows every single moment of the day. You are engaged in a silent conversation with yourself. This conversation is so constant, so habitual, that you may not even notice it happening. It runs like background music, shaping your emotions, coloring your decisions, and filtering the way you see the world. What many people fail to realize is that this inner dialogue is not just idle chatter. It is the architect of your reality. The words you repeat to yourself become the framework upon which your life is built. Assumption is the seed from which your experiences grow. If you consistently assume you are unlucky, your mind will selectively focus on every event that confirms that belief, ignoring or dismissing the moments where fortune smiled on you. Likewise, if you assume that you are capable, resourceful, and resilient, you will find yourself taking bolder actions, recovering faster from setbacks, and noticing opportunities that others overlook. Your assumption is not just a passive belief. It is the silent instruction to your subconscious mind, telling it what to filter, what to amplify, and what to create. Self-talk is the direct expression of those assumptions. Listen closely to the way you describe yourself in your mind. Do you say, I'm not good with people, I never have enough money, or things never work out for me? These are not harmless statements. Each one is a declaration of identity, a self-issued order to remain in that state. The subconscious mind takes these words as truth, not suggestion. It then works tirelessly to maintain that truth, subtly guiding your behaviors, shaping your emotional responses, and drawing you towards situations that match the assumption. On the other hand, changing your self-talk changes the blueprint. When you start speaking to yourself in the language of your desired reality, you plant new seeds in the subconscious. Instead of, I'm always nervous when I meet new people, you might say, I'm naturally comfortable in any social setting. Instead of, I never get opportunities, you might affirm, opportunities flow to me effortlessly. At first, these statements may feel strange or untrue, but the subconscious does not measure truth by current evidence. It measures it by repetition and emotional acceptance. The more consistently you speak them, the more they begin to overwrite the old program. This is why people often find that after changing their inner dialogue, they begin to notice small coincidences. They meet someone helpful at just the right time, they feel more confident without knowing why, they start to see solutions they had overlooked before. These are not accidents. They are the outward reflections of a shift in the internal blueprint. Your self-talk is also powerful because it determines the emotional tone you carry. The assumption, I'm always under pressure, produces a state of tension, which then influences posture, breathing, and even facial expression. People respond to you differently when you are tense than when you are calm. Your own body language feeds back into your mind, confirming the assumption in a loop. When you deliberately assume, I handle challenges with ease, your inner dialogue aligns with feelings of calm capability. That feeling is then reflected in how others perceive and respond to you, which reinforces the assumption in a positive cycle. Assumptions also have a way of outlasting temporary circumstances. Someone who assumes they are resilient can face a major setback and still see themselves as on their way to success. They may feel disappointment, but the core identity remains intact, so they recover quickly. Someone with the opposite assumption may experience a smaller setback, but interpret it as proof that things never work out, causing them to give up prematurely. In both cases, the assumption, not the event, dictates the outcome. Even your imagination is governed by your assumptions. The pictures you see in your mind, the scenarios you rehearse, and the outcomes you expect are all built upon the foundation of what you believe to be true about yourself. If your self-talk is rooted in limitation, your imagination will reflect limitation. If your self-talk is rooted in possibility, your imagination will open doors you never thought to knock on. Live in the end, speak to yourself as if your desire is already a fact, not a future wish. Living in the end is the art of stepping into the reality of your desire before any outward evidence appears. It is not about wishful thinking or vague hope. It is about assuming the position of someone who already has what they want, and letting that position dictate your inner speech, your emotions, and your reactions to life. This is not pretending in the sense of playing make-believe. It is adopting a state of being so completely that your subconscious mind accepts it as the truth here and now. When most people think about their goals or desires, they speak in future terms. One day I will be successful. Eventually I will find love. Someday I'll have financial freedom. This approach subtly reinforces the idea that the thing you want is separate from you, distant in time, and always ahead of you. By placing it in the future, you train your mind to expect it in the future, never in the present. The future never actually arrives as a tangible moment. There is only now. And if in the now you keep speaking as if the desire is out there, it will remain out there. Living in the end means shifting that language entirely. Instead of I will, you speak I am. Instead of I hope, you speak I have. You talk to yourself as the person who is already living in the fulfilled state. If you desire success in your career, you do not describe yourself as working towards success, but as thriving in my field, doing meaningful and rewarding work. If you desire better health, you speak as I am vibrant, strong, and full of energy rather than I'm trying to get healthy. The shift may seem subtle, but it is profound. This change in language does more than sound positive. It alters the entire mental blueprint from which your actions flow. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. When you consistently speak and think from the end, you are giving your subconscious the instruction to organize your thoughts, habits, and perceptions in alignment with that reality. Opportunities, ideas, and even chance encounters begin to align with the state you have accepted internally. Living in the end also requires that you carry the emotional tone of the fulfilled desire. It is not enough to say, I am wealthy, while internally feeling scarcity. You must ask yourself, if it were true that I already have this, how would I feel? How would I speak to myself? How would I interpret events in my life? When you answer those questions honestly and begin to embody those feelings, your mind and body begin to sync with the new reality. This is the fuel that makes the words alive rather than hollow affirmations. An important part of this practice is ignoring the temptation to constantly check the outer world for signs. Living in the end means the matter is settled. You do not plant a seed and then dig it up every day to see if it's growing. You nurture it in faith, knowing the growth is taking place unseen. When you truly occupy the end state, you lose the need to look for proof because you already possess the inner knowing that it is done. This can feel unnatural at first because the senses will contradict your assumption. If you say, I am successful, while staring at an empty calendar, or I am loved, while experiencing loneliness, the mind will try to argue. But this is the critical moment where living in the end matters most. You do not negotiate with the senses, you persist in the chosen identity regardless of appearances. Over time, the external must conform to the internal pattern you hold with consistency. Living in the end is not about forcing the outer world to change. It is about changing the inner world so completely that the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. It is the decision to stop relating to your desire as a distant possibility and to start speaking, feeling, and thinking as the person who already has it now, in this moment. With no hesitation and no gap between desire and fulfillment, inner speech shapes outer life. The conversations in your head are seeds that grow into your experiences. Every thought you repeat, every silent conversation you have with yourself, carries a creative power that extends far beyond the walls of your mind. Inner speech is not merely a reflection of your mood or personality. It is an active force, planting seeds in the fertile soil of your subconscious. Over time, those seeds sprout into experiences, relationships, and circumstances that mirror the nature of your inner dialogue. Whether you are aware of it or not, your life is the visible harvest of the invisible words you've been speaking to yourself. The mind is never still. Even in moments of quiet, you are engaged in an ongoing exchange with yourself. You may be replaying something someone said, imagining a future event, or silently reacting to your environment. These conversations are often so habitual that they go unnoticed, yet they determine how you interpret the world and how the world responds to you. A person whose inner speech is filled with criticism and self-doubt will notice different details, react with different emotions, and make different decisions than someone whose inner speech affirms confidence and capability. Inner speech acts like an internal script, directing your behavior and shaping your emotional state. If your inner dialogue constantly tells you, "I'm always overwhelmed," your body will respond with tension, your mind will filter for stressful situations, and you will feel compelled to interpret events as proof of being overwhelmed. This becomes a self-reinforcing loop. Your inner words create feelings, your feelings influence actions, and your actions generate outcomes that confirm the original words. Conversely, if your inner speech is, "I always find a way," your body relaxes into solutions, your mind scans for opportunities, and your actions naturally align with resilience and resourcefulness. What makes inner speech so powerful is that the subconscious mind does not evaluate the truth of what you say. It accepts repeated words and thoughts as instructions. Like a gardener who plants seeds without judgment, the subconscious takes whatever you impress upon it and brings it to life in some form. This means the nature of your inner dialogue is directly responsible for the kind of experiences that show up in your life. A mind that entertains words of lack and limitation will inevitably produce situations of lack and limitation. A mind that entertains words of abundance and possibility will yield matching conditions. These internal conversations are also contagious. The way you speak to yourself determines the tone you carry when speaking to others, and people tend to respond in kind. If your inner dialogue is filled with suspicion, you will unconsciously project defensiveness, which may cause others to act guarded around you. If your inner dialogue is full of respect and kindness toward yourself, your interactions with others tend to invite respect and kindness in return. In this way, your inner speech not only shapes your personal reality, but also influences how the world at large engages with you. Becoming aware of inner speech is the first step toward deliberately shaping it. It requires observing the flow of your thoughts without judgment, simply noticing the kinds of conversations you are having in your head. Once you notice them, you can begin to redirect them. This does not mean ignoring problems or avoiding reality. It means consciously choosing words that affirm the state of being you wish to experience. When a negative or limiting inner conversation arises, you can replace it with a statement that reflects the reality you want to live in. Over time, these deliberate replacements become the new habit, and the subconscious begins to operate from this improved blueprint. Even brief moments of focused, constructive inner speech can carry tremendous weight. Just as a single seed has the potential to grow into a tree that bears fruit for years, a single sentence repeated with conviction can alter the trajectory of your life. When those sentences become the dominant tone of your inner world, your outer life must inevitably adjust to match them. Ignore the present. Feed the desire, don't reinforce what you see. Reinforce what you want to see. The present moment, as real and solid as it appears, is nothing more than the residue of past thoughts, beliefs, and actions. It is a snapshot of an earlier state of mind made visible. The mistake most people make is treating this present snapshot as a permanent truth instead of a temporary result. They keep observing it, talking about it, and emotionally reacting to it, not realizing that every time they do, they water the seeds of its continuation. By giving attention and emotional energy to what already exists, especially if it is unwanted, they unintentionally extend its life. To change your life, you must break that cycle. You cannot create something new while continually reinforcing what is. The key is to mentally step beyond your current circumstances and dwell on the reality you want instead. This doesn't mean you deny or suppress the present. It means you stop treating it as the deciding factor in what comes next. Instead of reacting to appearances, you deliberately focus on the end result you wish to experience, and you feed it with your thoughts, emotions, and inner conversations until it takes root in your subconscious. The world around you responds to the state of mind you occupy most consistently. If you wish to improve your finances but constantly talk about how expensive everything is, how little money you have, and how unfair the system is, you are watering the plant of lack. If you want to improve your relationships but keep repeating stories of betrayal, disappointment, or loneliness, you are reinforcing the same dynamic you want to escape. Attention is nourishment. Wherever you place it, growth follows. Feeding the desired state requires imagining and speaking as if it is already part of your reality. If your present body is weak or unfit, don't keep declaring it as so. Instead, picture yourself strong, healthy, and energetic, and describe yourself in those terms. If your business is struggling, speak about it as thriving and prosperous, not in blind optimism, but with the understanding that your words and mental images are shaping tomorrow's conditions. By consistently doing this, you stop recycling the energy of the old state and begin building momentum for the new one. This practice demands discipline, because the senses will always try to pull you back into reacting to the present. The outer world will tempt you with evidence that contradicts your desire. You might see bills piling up, hear criticism from others, or feel physical discomfort. But if you allow those appearances to dictate your mental state, you are handing them the power to replicate themselves. To ignore the present is not to be reckless or detached from reality. It is to refuse to let the current scene override the inner vision you've chosen to live by. One of the most effective ways to feed the desired is through emotional rehearsal. You ask yourself, if my desired reality were true right now, how would I feel? How would I talk? How would I carry myself? You then bring those feelings into the present moment and let them color your thoughts and actions. By doing so, you are conditioning your subconscious to accept the new state as real. Over time, your outer conditions shift to reflect the new inner identity you've assumed. This is why ignoring the present is not about escapism. It is about refusing to give energy to what no longer serves you. Just as a plant withers when it is no longer watered, unwanted circumstances fade when they are starved of mental attention. And just as a seed flourishes when given light, warmth, and care, your desired reality grows stronger and more inevitable the more you feed it with focused thought, confident words, and consistent emotional alignment. Persist in the new story, even when the outer world shows no change. Keep speaking the truth of your desire. When you decide to change your life, you do so by adopting a new inner story, a mental narrative in which your desire is already fulfilled. At first, this feels inspiring and exciting. You speak new words to yourself, picture better outcomes, and feel fresh motivation. But soon the outer world confronts you with the same old circumstances. The promotion hasn't arrived. The relationship hasn't healed. The debt hasn't vanished. This is the moment where most people abandon the new story and return to the old one. They see no evidence of change, so they conclude that their efforts have failed. In doing so, they reinforce the very reality they were trying to leave behind. Persistence is the bridge between the unseen and the seen. The outer world always lags behind the inner world, just as the fruit on a tree lags behind the planting of the seed. When you plant a seed, you do not stare at the soil each day, declaring it barren. You trust that growth is happening beneath the surface. In the same way, when you tell yourself the new story, you must trust that changes are unfolding invisibly, even if your senses report no difference yet. Speaking the truth of your desire means you remain loyal to the fulfilled state in thought, word, and feeling, no matter what the present moment suggests. If you have chosen to see yourself as wealthy, you speak wealth even when bills arrive. If you have chosen to see yourself as loved, you affirm love even when no one is calling or texting. The old reality may still echo for a while, but those echoes fade as long as you do not strengthen them with your attention. This kind of persistence requires emotional discipline. The temptation to check for results is strong, and when nothing appears, doubt can creep in. Doubt is simply the mind trying to pull you back into familiar territory where the old story reigns. But the longer you hold your new story without collapsing back into the old one, the more firmly it takes root in your subconscious. Once it is rooted, the outer world has no choice but to reflect it, for the external is always a mirror of the internal. One practical way to persist is to treat the new story as if it is an unshakable fact. You do not argue with it, negotiate with it, or revisit whether it is working. You live from it as naturally as you live from the fact of your name. If someone asked you your name, you wouldn't hesitate. Check your driver's license. or worry that you might be wrong. You would state it with certainty. That is the level of confidence you bring to your new story. Another method is to saturate your inner world with the language and imagery of the fulfilled desire. Let your inner conversations always be from the point of having, not seeking. Picture scenes that would naturally occur if your desire were already true. Hear compliments, congratulations, or acknowledgments in your imagination. Allow yourself to feel gratitude for the fact that it is already done. These mental rehearsals strengthen the identity you have chosen, making it harder for the old story to regain control. The longer you persist, the less the outer world's current appearance matters. You begin to understand that your power lies not in reacting to what you see, but in holding to what you have chosen to believe. The present reality becomes nothing more than a fading memory of past assumptions, and your attention is fixed firmly on the reality you are building within. You speak it, you feel it, and you return to it over and over until it becomes the only story you know. Identity first. Results follow. Talk as the version of yourself who already has the life you want. Every action you take, every decision you make, and every result you produce flows naturally from who you believe you are. Your identity is the foundation of your behavior, and your behavior shapes your circumstances. Trying to create lasting change without first changing your identity is like painting over rust. It may look different for a moment, but the old pattern will soon show through. The key is to shift how you see and speak to yourself, not after you achieve the result, but before, so that the result becomes the inevitable expression of the identity you've assumed. Most people operate in the reverse order. They wait for results to validate a new self-image. They say, when I'm successful, then I'll feel confident. Or, once I'm in a healthy relationship, then I'll feel loved. Or, after I get fit, then I'll see myself as athletic. This approach keeps the desired identity in the future, always dependent on external proof. But real transformation happens when you decide to embody the identity now, without waiting for evidence. You talk, think, and act as the person you intend to be, and over time, your outer world rearranges itself to match. Talking as the version of yourself who already has the life you want is more than positive thinking. It's deliberate self-definition. If you want to be financially free, you don't speak from the perspective of someone struggling and hoping for a break. You speak from the perspective of someone who manages wealth, makes wise investments, and easily attracts opportunities. If you want to be healthy and strong, you don't keep saying, I'm trying to get in shape. You speak as, I am vibrant, full of energy, and in the best condition of my life. The words you choose tell your subconscious who you are, and the subconscious works tirelessly to make that self-image a reality. When you change identity first, your habits naturally follow. A person who identifies as a runner doesn't have to push themselves to run. Running is simply part of who they are. A person who identifies as a leader doesn't have to force themselves to speak up in meetings. They naturally take charge when needed. When your inner dialogue reinforces the identity you want, your mind begins to align your actions, decisions, and opportunities with that identity without constant effort. This approach also eliminates much of the internal conflict that comes with forcing change. When you act in a way that conflicts with your current identity, it feels like resistance. You can push through for a while, but eventually you snap back to the old comfort zone. When you act from a new identity, however, your actions feel natural and consistent. You're not forcing yourself to become something. You're simply expressing who you already are in your mind. Adopting the identity before the results appear requires faith and persistence, because your senses will initially contradict you. The bank account may not yet reflect the wealthy identity. The mirror may not yet reflect the fit identity. And your circumstances may not yet reflect the successful identity. But the more consistently you speak and think as that version of yourself, the more you condition your subconscious to accept it as fact. Once accepted, the outer world begins to shift to match the inner truth. The most effective way to solidify a new identity is through repetition and emotional involvement. You speak the words daily, not as if you're convincing yourself, but as if you're simply describing reality. You pair those words with the feeling of already being that person. You imagine yourself moving through life with that self-image, noticing how you carry yourself, how others respond to you, and how naturally you navigate situations. By holding to this state, the gap between identity and results closes until the two are indistinguishable.